So before we actually get into the video, I want to talk to you guys about the OneFootball app, because for me it's the perfect go-to place for all your football news. You get player news, player statistics, league tables, upcoming fixtures, transfer news, team news, all in one place, all at zero cost. You also get match highlights for leagues like the Serie A, where you also get a match which you can watch live for free every single week. This weekend it will be Fiorentina at home to Torino, and like I said, all of this is zero cost. It is the only football app that I use because it does it all in one place. So you can get it too by using the link in the description down below, or by scanning the QR code which will be on screen now. It really is the best football app there is out there to you, so I highly recommend that you download the OneFootball app today. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today this feels a little bit weird for me because I've literally just pressed to stop recording a video talking about why Manchester United could only draw against Crystal Palace and why they didn't play too well. Now I'm telling you why Manchester United can beat Arsenal, the best team in England, like a couple of minutes later. So it's a little bit odd for me. However, I have a plan. I've got my notes here. I have a plan on how Manchester United can beat this Arsenal team. I think there are not necessarily weaknesses in this Arsenal team, but I think there are certain things that they depend on, which United can potentially nullify. However, Manchester United have done me a massive favour. I'm lying, by the way. They have got this massive Gret spanner and just lobbed it in the works, because I had this lovely plan set out, and then last night, Casemiro gets suspended. He was, of course, a big part of the plan, and Martial wasn't even fit enough to make the squad. So spanners in the works at Manchester United. They had to go and ruin my plan. However, of course, we adapt. We've got a new plan, and we've tinkered with some things. And I think I have a way in which Manchester United can beat Arsenal this weekend. If they could, it would be a massive win. So let's get into it. So I guess the first thing to start with is the lineups, and here we have Arsenal in what is currently their strongest 11 with Gabriel Jesus out injured. This is most likely how they will line up in this shape. For Manchester United, we have a few decision headaches. We've got Wan-Bissaka over Dalot at right back just because Wan-Bissaka is more match sharp. Dalot might be fit by then, we're not sure. McTominay in midfield replacing Casemiro alongside Eriksen and Fred, which is of course different to what United normally do. Bruno Fernandes right wing. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I've got a tactical plan, so just trust me on that one. Rashford up front, again, just trust me. Garnacho left wing. Now, like I said, United have had a massive spanner thrown in the works. So, in order for Manchester United to win this game, I don't think they can go with their normal tactics. I think Arsenal are a bit too good. So we have come up with something a little bit special. This isn't just a typical Manchester United system, a typical way that they should approach this game. We're gone for something a little bit different. So Arsenal will have majority of possession in this game, in my opinion. They are very good on the ball, and when they get on the ball, they like to play in what becomes a 3-2-5 shape. The two central midfielders push up alongside the attack, with the wingers providing the width. Ben White will often tuck in at right back. Thomas Partey and Zinchenko will form a double pivot, and of course we've got this back three here. So this is the first problem for Manchester United to try and solve. Now what I'm going to do is have these Arsenal players deep. Imagine they're higher, but just for the sake of presentation, I'm going to put them a little bit deeper just so you guys can see clearly enough. But just imagine they are a little bit higher. So the first problem that Manchester United need to solve is Zinchenko and Thomas Partey. Now, when these two teams played each other last, Thomas Partey wasn't fit, and that is a big loss for Arsenal that time round. This time he is back. Manchester United need to find a way to try and stop him, because Partey and Zinchenko absolutely destroyed Spurs. Now, I've got analysis on it on my channel if you want to go find it. United need to find a way to stop it. So I'm asking something a bit weird of United here. United need to stop Arsenal overloading the centre of the pitch because they destroyed Spurs in that way. So this is why we have Bruno Fernandes right wing, because I am going to ask him to play a really tucked in defensive position. And actually, I'm going to ask United to defend in an extremely narrow 4-4-2, almost playing with four central midfielders. Now, one thing I should say is this isn't a prediction of how the game will go, it is how I would approach the game. There are of course other solutions as well. This is one way which I think could work. There are a few different approaches United could use, but I would be going with a narrow midfield 4. Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. Now, the idea behind these four central midfielders as well as this narrow 2 is to stop Arsenal's central progression, because we know that Partey and Zinchenko are both excellent at moving the ball forward through the lines and dictating the play. So I'm going to ask Rashford and Garnacho to do a similar job to what Martial and Eriksen done last weekend on Bernardo Silva and Rodri. Stop these two dictating and controlling the game, because straight away, that is going to stop an element of Arsenal's ball progression. The four central midfielders, the key is to stop the midfield overload. Last weekend against Spurs, we saw Arsenal massively overload in the centre of the pitch. United can't afford to let that happen, especially without Casemiro in the team. They can't afford to be a man down. So I would move Fred and Fernandes really narrow and make this middle of the pitch as chaotic as possible. Arsenal look for control, make it chaotic. Get in there, get scrappy with Fred and McTominay, win your duels. Now, what this is going to do is force Arsenal a little bit wider. And down the left-hand side, we don't tend to see too many creative patterns from Arsenal. Martinelli is very often used as a bit of an isolation winger. Yes, Zinchenko can join the attack, but again, that's why Bruno Fernandes is there to try and deal with that when he moves forward. But in terms of Martinelli up against Wan-Bissaka, I am just going to trust that Wan-Bissaka is good enough defensively. On the other side is where my greater concern lies, because we can see Ben White stepping forward at times, and his tactical intelligence mixed with Bukayo Saka's incredible world-class ability is a big threat. This is why I would have Fred kind of moving to his left half space in the midfield, so that when Ben White is stepping forward, Fred can come out and deal with him. If United were to use a traditional winger on this side like Garnacho or Marcus Rashford, I don't think they are as good defensively. So when Fred is shifting across, it's important that the rest of the midfield comes across too. This is what United need to do. They can't afford to be pulled out one way and then exposed through the middle. It's what Arsenal are so good at doing. I think playing with this really narrow 4-4-2 shape stops that happening. It's something that Newcastle done quite well. Not in the same shape, but they've done a great job of cutting the passing lanes into the centre of the pitch, but also then engaging the ball as well. So Fred is going to need to get out and press someone like Ben White here. We can see Shaw on Saka, but then United still have these midfielders. Now that means that Arsenal are going to be going backwards and utilising the switch quite a lot. Basically, the United fullbacks are going to have to be on it. There is no other choice. But also, these midfielders have got to make sure they're shuttling, but keeping their distances right. They can't afford to have one midfielder getting drawn out. But in my opinion, this is a really good way for United to nullify the Arsenal threat. Because, let's be honest, it's quite a defensive system. Not many teams can deal with break down a shape which is this narrow and compact. And if United are able to do this and win the ball back in these areas, then they have the chance to transition. Now, in transition is where Manchester United typically tend to thrive, and of course the first thing is going to be quality under pressure. Arsenal will counter-press. United's passing needs to be clean. If United's passing initially is clean, I think playing this narrow 4-4-2 gives United two areas where they can really exploit. And for me, it's Fred with this space here, and Bruno Fernandes with this space here. Perhaps not two players you'd be expecting me to talk about as the key players for this system. But defensively, they need to do that job of getting out wide and engaging the ball, but then also tucking back in narrow when the ball's on the other side. But in possession, I do think that this system would give them the space to carry forward, and we know that Bruno Fernandes is very good in transition. Fred's energy when given the licence to get forward is also very, very impressive. I think this could be excellent for Manchester United. I think they could get these areas where they can get behind Odegaard and Xhaka and get at this back line. And with Fred and Fernandes carrying the ball, of course you then need to see runs from Garnacho and Marcus Rashford, and this is why I would go with these two. Yes, there's a shout for Weghorst to play up front, of course. Very good link player on the counter-attack. However, I think the way that Arsenal play, United need some speed in their transition. And Bruno Fernandes on the right wing isn't going to naturally provide that. So Garnacho comes into the team, Marcus Rashford goes up front, and United are dangerous in transition, we know they are. Garnacho currently is probably one of the best 1 versus 1 wingers in the Premier League. As crazy as it sounds, like at his young age, he is really good at this. And we have seen United have success up against Ben White before. I also think, of course, that if Garnacho is going to peel wide and draw Ben White out, then there is the potential for Eriksen on the counter-attack, but also Bruno Fernandes on the counter-attack, to find Rashford with long balls over the top. I think United could be really good in transition, so that is certainly something that I would be trying to isolate. Sit deep in this 4-4-2 shape, really narrow, stop central progression, but then can you counter-attack? Now, one thing that I should say, because I said it in my Manchester City preview, is that these are just a couple of the things that you can target with Arsenal. Arsenal, like City, are a very good team. I can't tell you every weakness, I can't tell you how to beat them because it would take too long. These are a couple of points to focus on, and I do think if United are compact and really central, stop the Arsenal overloads, I think that is key. And then, of course, in the transition, we do know that you can get at Arsenal a little bit in these areas. We've seen a couple of teams doing it. Spurs done it last weekend a little bit. Manchester United are very good in transition. So that is how I think United can nullify Arsenal. But But also the problem is Arsenal are very good defensively as well, which is another problem that United need to deal with. So of course that is what we are going to look at now, and I've flipped things around so we can focus on Manchester United in possession but also Arsenal pressing. Arsenal for me are one of the best pressing sides in the Premier League. Not many teams have figured out a way to play through that yet. I'm going to try to. And to do this, you need to acknowledge the fact that Arsenal often press in what becomes a 3-2-1-4. We see one of the fullbacks, often Ben White, sitting deeper. We see one of the fullbacks, often Zinchenko, pushing right forward onto the opposition fullback. Saka does the same on the other side. And then we see Martinelli moving central to join the striker. And then this midfield three. It becomes a 3-2-1-4 if you like. So the question is, how do you play through that? And like I said, not many teams have managed to find it yet. Not many teams know. So there are two options. For me, again, the key is overload the middle of the pitch. And again, it's why I think Bruno Fernandes starting on the right wing can be such a powerful weapon to United in this game. Yes, he's starting on the right wing. I do not want to see him right wing. Move central. And I think that is key for the build-up. That Bruno Fernandes is moving into these areas. And Garnacho on the left-hand side is holding the width. And of course, as always, Marcus Rashford is ready to go in behind. Now, what this is going to do is initially, if Arsenal want to press, it gives United 3 versus 2 at the back here. De Gea needs to be brave in possession and willing to help out his centre-backs. Because if he is, I think United can almost create a sequence of overloads through the middle of the pitch. Now just bear with me for a second. So here we have a 3 versus 2 against the 2 strikers, which is a situation that United should be able to work. In front of that, from there, you then have a 4 of McTominay, Eriksen, Varane and Martinez, again against these 2 strikers. If Odegaard wants to get involved in the situation, he can, but once again, United have the overload. So if United are sharp and importantly brave in possession, United have to be brave on the ball. If you think back to the first game against City, months ago, United weren't brave in possession. They have to be brave. If they are, they can work overloads. Because what we can see is if they can work this overload, this 4 versus 3 in the middle, then what it gives them is potential to then create it again, moving in the sequence further forward. McTominay, Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes and Fred up against Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka and Martin Odegaard. I think there is potential for United to create these overloads in the middle of the pitch. And quite simply, no matter how good Arsenal are in terms of their system, if you can overload them, any team is going to struggle with a midfield overload, especially when there's quality in there in Bruno Fernandes and Christian Eriksen. I think this is a way that, say, if Fred, for example, is willing to take someone like Partey, his marker, away from the situation, that Bruno Fernandes can get on the ball in his pockets, turn and then look to play forward. And with Marcus Rashford and Garnacho both being willing runners, but also very direct, I think it gives United a way to play through this press. If that is the case, Arsenal once daft, they do then often drop into a mid-block once the press doesn't work. And it means Nketiah and Martinelli will be deeper. They're often the same shape still initially, but a little bit deeper. I think United have to utilise the long ball. Again, I think if you can find Marcus Rashford, if you can find Garnacho in these wide channels, I think United have an option there. And Lisandro Martinez, but also Luke Shaw, are both very good long passers of the football. I think this is an area that United can exploit. When Arsenal press, yes, their press is brilliant. I think if United go with a really narrow midfield, again, it could be key to overloading it. And again, yes, there are flaws in this if Manchester United are to approach the game in this way. And again, yes, there are other approaches that United could use. But this is just one that I quite like the idea of with the current players that are available. I think overloading the middle of the pitch, but also having that willingness to go direct, could be a way to take somebody as Arsenal players out of the game. Now, as I've said already, if this is the case, Arsenal aren't daft and they will sit off and they will sit in a bit more of a mid-block shape, and 4-4-2 is often their approach, with Odegaard moving further forward alongside Nketiah. Now, what you might think in your head is that this means United now face the same problems that Arsenal are facing. If I said United defending in a compact 4-4-2 makes it difficult for Arsenal to play through. I don't think it's the same this way round, because Saka and Martinelli are not players that want to defend quite as narrow as what I was suggesting United do. So I think there are ways United can move the ball forward, and I think building with a back 3 is going to be key. We know a back 3 up against a front 2 is always the way that you should build possession. If you use just 2 centre-backs, it's very, very difficult. So I think the back 3 is important. But again, and I'm going to keep saying it, midfield overloads. I think United can overload the middle of this pitch. With Bruno Fernandes once again moving in from that right-hand side, Christian Eriksen, Scott McTominay and Fred, I think they can get forward. And if these wider centre-backs are also brave and willing to step forward, again, if United are selfless with their runs off the ball, perhaps Fred making a run forward to drag Thomas Partey, I think you can then find someone like Eriksen's feet. If you have the extra number in midfield, which United would in this system, then the key is to be clean with your passing, but also to drag people out of position, because you should always have a free man somewhere. It's a case of finding them. And if United United's wider centre-backs, in this situation Wan-Bissaka and Lisandro Martinez, are willing to step forward with the ball, I think United could drag players out. And that is when you can find your free man on the ball. So that is something United have to be targeting. I do think a flaw of this system is that United would be very left side heavy. With Bruno Fernandes right wing and also Wan-Bissaka playing quite deep, it does give United a lack of width down the right hand side, which means there is going to be a focus on the left. However, it's not necessarily a bad thing to focus down the left hand side when you have Luke Shaw, Alejandro Garnacho and Marcus Rashford. I think, like I keep saying, United can work overloads against this Arsenal team. I think this system allows them to do it. However, this probably isn't how the game is going to play out, simply because I think Arsenal will have more possession than this. So we aren't going to see United in sustained possession for large periods of the game. The greater focus is going to be playing through the press, which we have already discussed. It is going to be defending in their narrow, compact system, which we've already discussed, but also the transitions. Those are some of the keys on how United can beat Arsenal. Now, like I said right at the start and also halfway through the video, this isn't the only way that United can approach the game. There are other approaches they could use, more orthodox methods. However, I quite like the idea of a 4-3-3 with McTominay, Fred and Eriksen in midfield, Bruno Fernandes right wing, Garnacho left wing, Rashford up front, with Bruno Fernandes always, both defensively and offensively, moving inside into the middle to create that numerical overload. That, for me, is where United can win this game. But like I said, it's just one way they could do it. So let me know some other ideas in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of this system. Let me know who you think should start. All of that good stuff in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video. And as always, I will see you in the next one.